Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another Zenith webinar. My name is Klaus Shipley, and I will be hosting this event today. Recently, I think the topic of Microsoft 365 and Teams especially has been in the news a lot. So this is why we are actually very delighted today to bring you today's event, which is appropriately titled Driving Full-Scale Productivity and Collaboration with the Alfresco Connector for Microsoft 365 and Teams. Before we actually jump right into the presentation, I would like to outline a few ground rules. Please bear in mind that all attendees of this event are muted during the presentation, but you can post your comments and questions in the chat box. And at the end of the presentation, we will answer a few questions from the audience, and we will answer the questions that you posted in chat. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded, and everyone who has registered for the event will receive a link. Today's webinar is actually a very special hybrid webinar. This is a hybrid between Highland and Zenith, and we are actually very proud to be one of the first partners to demonstrate the Teams connector for Alfresco. And to help us bring that to light, we have two speakers today. The first one is Ronnie Timmermans, the CEO here at Zenith. He will talk about the Alfresco connectors and explain how they enhance collaboration and cooperation inside of the Alfresco environment. The second speaker is Jan Coulon. Jan has been a solution engineer at Highland for a little over 4 years now, and he has worked very closely with the team as well to develop these connectors. So he is the perfect person to guide us through the demonstration and also help to answer a few questions at the end. Now, in order to kick off our webinar, I would like to invite Ronnie Timmermans to the mic. He will tell us a little bit about the agenda and then go into his section of the presentation. Ronnie?
Great. Thank you very much, Klaus. Indeed, it's an honor to have, let's say, a European scoop, at least, in terms of introducing you the Highland connector for as well Microsoft Teams as Microsoft 365. Having a look at the agenda, I'll introduce the topic position a little bit, how we think that Alfresco Highland and Microsoft 365 and Teams are supposed to work together. And of course, the fun part will be covered by Jan Coulon. That's the demo and showing you how it actually works. We all know these days that Microsoft, with the advances of desktop-based Office going to the cloud, has introduced, next to the productivity features that the Office suite already brought, a lot of collaboration features. And we believe that is a strength, certainly in these days, working from home, COVID, but this is the new world, regardless of any epidemic and pandemic situations of working from home. We will be working much more from anywhere, and this is lovely and enabled by Microsoft in collaboration scenarios. We also believe that combining this collaborative strength of Microsoft 365 and Teams with control, with the governance and transactional content services of Alfresco, is a best of breed approach for the right customers and use cases. Of course, this depends on your information architecture. It depends on your information vision, but combining more, let's say, controlled and governance ECM environments with this collaborative environment of Microsoft 365 can actually be, for many companies, a best of breed approach. So it is without further ado that we step into the Highland Alfresco collaboration connector. It's both things. It's Microsoft 365 and it's Teams. Huh? Both things are of course different. If you are here in that webinar, you know about them. You have a vested interest in the Microsoft collaboration environment. So how do you position those? And I guess this is a slide to illustrate how we see things. Why is this a best of breed approach, and where do you use what? Content has a life cycle. It often starts with people. People have ideas, they create new proposals, they create new product descriptions, whatever. It is for sure a very collaborative and a high velocity process. Things are changing. We're collaborating on those things. It's a phase that needs a bit of chaos to be creative, and that's what the tooling and the content should support. And then Microsoft has always been very strong in that area. And I believe that they support two types of collaboration now. First of all, there is document-centric collaboration, and that's Microsoft 365 and the Office suite. And then what I would call, better names can exist, but I call it conversation-centric collaboration via MS Teams. And both environments are integrated. And now with the Highland connectors, actually, we can connect that also with enterprise content management environments. Because we should not forget that in many of our customers, um, uh, that there is other content than creative content. There is content produced by processes, by back office systems that is very often exchanged, transformed between processes. It's the content-centric processes, of course. It contains transactional content, and this is not per se content that fits very well into the SharePoint and Microsoft 365 paradigm. Often it is high load. There is a lot going on in our customer base. We have some premium customers in the insurance sector, but also in the industrial sector, in temporary labor sector. There's a lot of those documents going on. And actually the combination of those with creative content is interesting. There comes in the connector. And then at the bottom, but not the smallest, is the life cycle. The end of the life cycle is compliance. You want to keep most of that content, even when it's not active and creative anymore. It should bubble down into the compliance sector, which is characterized by high volumes and which is appropriately called a system of record, where to organize content at the very top, the active collaboration side, you very often would see folders, and folders are actually also then an aid because they just enable collaboration. If you look more down to the process and compliance level, you see that the role of metadata will get more important as an organization principle. And there, Alfresco at those two layers helps a lot. It has a very flexible document model. It has aspects. So you can do a lot for all types of content. So that's how we see things fitting together. It is very often so that collaboration and control are not natural friends. They shouldn't be natural enemies, but you have to keep them in balance. Access rights are, when you speak about collaboration, well, they're a bit of an inhibitor. They're a bit of a nuisance. You just want to share with people and create your content. Of course, you have to be careful that you're not leaking information that should not be leaked. While in a control, the control requirements have very stringent requirements on how you should and whom you should be sharing information with. So you need to create a balance between those two. And a hybrid environment where you can create that balance allows you to optimize each of those both environments. Microsoft, SharePoint, 365, collaboration, freedom should be there to accelerate innovation. Then in the back office or in the deeper layers of process, system of record, a little bit more of control is required to cover your full life cycle. So we talked about the collaboration. Huh? Of course, you want to collaborate in real time, but also you want to have compliance and how to strike the right balance. There are compliance requirements, and there is a common control need. Huh? Whatever happens when your content goes over different layers, you want to just know where it is and how to manage that life cycle of your documents. Microsoft 365 Online, lovely because you can work together in parallel with people. It increases user productivity a lot because we don't have to have working copies or locked documents anymore. We can just work on those documents at any time that we want. And Microsoft keeps all of that in sync. It's a great feature. So how does the scenario work that Jan will show us? You could create a new Office document from the Alfresco digital workspace. It will open in the relevant Microsoft web application, either Word, PowerPoint, or Excel. You can edit that Office document directly from Alfresco. You can share and collaborate on that Office document. Of course, this is a quality of Microsoft 365. You can join live co-authoring sessions. That is, well, the Valhalla of collaboration, content-centric collaboration. And ultimately, that content can flow back into a control system in Alfresco, where metadata, where governance, where systems of record are important. So you keep that kind of large pool of documents that are the memory of your enterprise, and you don't have to manage that all together with your active content, which should be a smaller section of content in the first stages of its life cycle. Just to list them, users can easily create new documents, can easily edit new documents, they can easily co-author documents. This is, I think, the big innovation that Microsoft 365 brings. And finally, they can easily share Office documents. They can also do that in a safe way because you can choose whom you share documents with. How to access Microsoft 365 from Alfresco. Jan will show this. There is a menu, right click on a document, edit in Word online, and you'll be able to do whatever you need to do in Office 365. Microsoft Teams, which I call the, let's say, conversation-centric collaboration environment. What it does is clear to us. It has been extremely successful during the pandemic period, which is unfortunately not yet ended, but I think we're close to better times. In terms of functionality in the integration, you can, from Teams, search for content in Alfresco. You can, of course, access and share that content with Teams mates, let's say. You can view the content that is in Alfresco right inside your Teams environment, and you can interact with that content. And again, Alfresco will remain in that scenario your system of record to govern content. So it will offload, I think, some responsibilities, some load of your collaboration environment to ease that, put it more under control, and deliver that best of breed solution for the whole life cycle of content. What can users do with the Alfresco connector? The Teams connector, again, share, view, search content right inside your Teams environment. I think it's better to see how that works than that I try to explain it much longer. How to access Alfresco from Teams. There is a Teams button. You have to see that, of course, on the left-hand side in the top, you can see the Teams environment. There is a small Alfresco icon, as you see at the very bottom. You can click there, and from there on, your interaction will start basically by searching for a document. Again, better to demo than to explain. Which brings me to passing the word and the stage and the screen to Jan to show us how these things work.
Thanks, Ronnie. So I will start by sharing my screen. You should be able to see the Alfresco digital workspace. I'm already in a collaboration library with 2 documents. So as mentioned, Ronnie, from a user perspective, the integration with Microsoft 365 will give user the ability to create document from Alfresco, from the Alfresco digital workspace directly and start working on those documents. So they can create documents. We can see the blank document which has been created, access the metadata which has been also mentioned by Ronnie in the introduction. They can also, of course, upload new document in Alfresco, and once the document is stored into Alfresco, they can use the action to start working on those documents. To work on those documents, we find all the action that we can expect from Alfresco, the ability to move, to copy, to delete the content, start process, edit the document with the Microsoft offline integration that Alfresco supports since several versions, the ability to edit offline, which will result in your user to download the document, update it using the appropriate application, and then later upload the new version. Set the document as favorite, download it, share it, or simply view check the preview by the right action. But in the middle, we now have, with this integration, the ability to edit the document directly into Word Online. Once the action is triggered, the document will be shared with Microsoft 365. The user will be asked to log in if it's not already. So I was logged before, so it opened smoothly the document without any other action. And I can start to work on the document by adding a title, adding an heading, and I can see that in Alfresco, the document has been logged during that time, which gives the ability to make sure that the document won't be updated by anyone else later on. Once I finish to work on my document, I can now close the Word Online. But if I want to continue working and use the full power of the Word application, I can select the action to open in the desktop app, and Microsoft Word will open and load the document directly without any action. From there, I can continue to work on the document with the full power of the Word desktop application. Once it's done, again, I can close the window. The document will be synced. I can resume the edition if I want in Microsoft 365. And the document will be updated with the change that I just made. Now my modifications are done. I can now close the window and see from Alfresco that the document is still logged. The contextual action change, and from a full capability to move, copy, delete the document, I just have a limited set of action to view the current version, download the current version. I can still start process, but I can also resume and access to the document in Word Online to continue working on it. I can also, of course, end the editing and update the document into Alfresco. So by clicking on that, a simple modal window will ask me if I want to save the update or discard everything. If I want to save it, I can select either if it's a minor or a major change. Comment, and I can now click on End the Edition, and the document will be grabbed from Microsoft 365 and updated inside Alfresco. We can see that the update has been made, and I can access the document preview. It should refresh at some point, and with the new content, if I download the document and I open it with Word, I can see the change which has been done to the document using Word Online, but also see that the document is saved currently on my MacBook. Once this is done, Alfresco, the capability offered by Alfresco, for example, through record management, can be used on that document, and we can see how easy it is to switch from a live document, a working document, to something which has to be kept for as a record of the company. If we go back to the use case that Ronnie shared to us earlier, he also mentioned that we have the ability to join current editing session. So for example, here, this PowerPoint presentation has been edited in PowerPoint Online previously and has been shared with one of my colleagues, Falco. So we should be able to see Falco working on the document as we connect. So the document is already shared into Microsoft 365. I can resume the editing, access the content, and see the work that Falco did in the background to on that document. Falco can also rejoin that session, and I can share and we can work together on that document. You can see here that Falco logged in and is currently editing the section by adding some new content to the introduction slide. Once the update that Falco wants to do are done, he can close the window, and we will be able to end the editing and grab and update the content in Alfresco with the latest change made to it. So I will now close the window. I'm now back in the Alfresco digital workspace, and I can end editing by clicking on the right action. Again, I have the ability to select if I want to discard the change and select which change we want to use. So here I will select a major change, session with Falco, and I can now end the editing. Again, the document will be updated with the content from Microsoft 365, and the preview will refresh with the new content. Again, it can take some time, but by downloading the document and viewing it, we will be able to see the latest update made by Falco on that document. It's taking some time to load. Here we can see the change made by Falco on that document. So now that we have been working together on one document, Falco might want to access that document directly into Alfresco to find it, to use it, or maybe to submit it as a record of the company and enter in the next phase of the life cycle of that document. So from Microsoft Teams, I can quickly access and share documents stored into Alfresco with my colleague Falco with a simple chat window. So hi Falco, please find in Alfresco the presentation we worked on. So as you can see, the integration is like a simple button that opens a search form, which can be configured to either use specific metadata. By default, we are searching on the name or the full text of the content. So I can see the result with the latest version, with the latest update of the presentation that we made, and I can share this presentation to Falco. So now Falco has a link to access that document, and we can click on the link to access to the document. So we will be able to see the metadata of the content, add new metadata, for example, through the aspect, but also download the document if needed, and so on. Regarding the Alfresco, the Teams integration, we have the ability to control which information is shared through the card in Teams. So for example, we can decide to hide the thumbnail, hide the title, and just show the link. The permission will be checked when the user will click on the link and connect to Alfresco to display the content, which means that there is no way that a user that doesn't have access to the content access it through Alfresco. In the end, it's the permission from Alfresco that will be used to assess if the user can see or not the document. So that's it for the demo. As you've seen, it's with the integration between Teams and Alfresco, or Alfresco and Microsoft 365, it's easy for users to work together on a same document, but also share documents between each other in order to make the collaboration process smoother, and in the end, still use Alfresco and all of its features as the central repository for your company.
Aeon, great. I think you had a few slides still to have a peek at
Yes.
well, the qualities and the roadmap. I can share them. Sorry.
Thanks, Ronnie. So productivity. As you've seen during the demo, it's really easy and handy to switch between Alfresco and Microsoft 365. It's also really easy to share document and access it through a Teams chat or a Teams channel. In terms of security, in the end, everything is controlled by Alfresco, which means that accessing a document that has been shared through Teams is not possible if the user doesn't have the ability to share that. And in terms of centralization, those two integrations allow you to use Alfresco as your central source of truth and keep the document in a centralized storage in order to reduce the cost, the risk of information loss or leaks, but also the ability to leverage all the features from, for example, tools like Alfresco Governance Services to manage your record and the life cycle of your document. In terms of roadmap, if you can switch to the next slide, the both connector has been released in the past. So the Teams connector has been released during October or November last year. The first version of Microsoft 365 is a bit older. And for next year, so for this year, for 2022, the engineering team is looking at several topics. The first one for Teams will be to give you the ability to, instead of just searching document from Alfresco, being able to upload document into Alfresco directly from Teams. You will also have the ability later on with specific ADF component to leverage the integration between Microsoft 365 and Alfresco through custom ADF built application. In terms of future, after Q2 2022, the team is currently looking at several topics again. And for that, if you have any interest in one of those topics or any specific use case that you see missing currently, feel free to reach us because the team is still currently looking at the planning, at the roadmap, and it's the best time to raise your interest for specific feature in order to get those feature looked to see if it can be made into the roadmap and one of the next version of this product. As a quick overview regarding the Microsoft 365, one of the topic is to make sure that we integrate both of our connector in order to join editing session directly from Teams instead of having to go back to Alfresco, but also the ability to display custom metadata in the cards that are shared inside the Teams chat, and also looking at the ability to archive chat or channel directly into Alfresco from Teams, into Alfresco or into Glacier, for example, through the S3 connector that we have. That's it for the demo and the future plan for both of those connectors. If you have any question.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Jan. The demo was very interesting. And then also to Ronnie, thank you for introducing the webinar and beginning the proceedings. We're now going to the Q&A section of the webinar. We are looking at the chat. At the moment, we don't see any questions posted. So that either means that Jan was super clear, or everyone is an expert on Teams for Alfresco. If you do have a question, however, you can post a question now or raise your hand in the chat and we'll give you the floor. While we wait for that, I think I'll just ask Jan a question that I saw while he was giving the demonstration. In relation to the versioning that I saw for the Office integration, what's the difference between the versioning of Fresco as opposed to having it on the SharePoint?
So on the Alfresco side, no version will be created before we end the editing, which means that your user can work for several days, hours on the same document, and the new version will only be created once we end the editing. So once we go back to Alfresco in order to update the document and select which kind of version we want. Which means that the version history won't be polluted by any of those auto-saving features that we have in Microsoft Office, which are really handy to avoid losing any data, but which at some point can create noise in terms of versioning.
Okay, thank you. I see there's a question from Tiara in the chat. And the question is there an option to copy, sync, or archive existing Microsoft Teams sites with its content or a selected part of it into Alfresco?
So the current version of the Teams integration only allows to search for content from Alfresco and the ability to archive content from Teams, either chat, channel, or maybe a site will be is targeted for an upcoming release. I can make sure I can check if the site thing is also something that is looked by the engineering team for those upcoming release.
Okay, thank you. And of course, if you need more information on that, we can have a follow-up session with you.
There's another question, Klaus, in the Q&A.
Okay, at this point, I'm not seeing it. Could you read it for me, please?
Yeah, sure. So very interesting presentation. Thank you. Question, users groups in Alfresco by sites, in Teams by team. Are there best practice recommendations for sharing documents from Alfresco in Teams? I mean, same group permission in both tools.
So by default, it's different set of user, but we can make sure that we address the same people by syncing Alfresco, for example, to the Azure Active Directory of your Microsoft organization. We can also sync groups, which means that you will be able to mimic the organization between Teams, Teams, Azure, and Microsoft 365 and Alfresco. But in the end, user, when sharing document into Microsoft Teams, will use the user base of Microsoft 365 or the same for the one online stuff. But in Alfresco, you will have different access, which means that it can also give you the possibility to work on a document stored on Alfresco with someone external of your company if it's allowed by your Microsoft 365 settings, and in the end grab the content back into Alfresco without giving them access to Alfresco directly.
Thank you, Jan. We have two more questions that I see here. The first one is, when would be possible to create a content in Microsoft 365 and store it directly in Alfresco?
Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for this. We have federation capability around Microsoft 365 and all the SharePoint and OneDrive topics that are underneath. But at the moment, we don't have such capability. It might come later, but I don't have any visibility. That's a question that I can raise.
Might
Thank
be
you.
on that. If
Yes,
I can
sorry,
add something to it, if I saw in the after Q2 roadmap that you would add functionality directly in cards, etc., you could imagine that an upload would be there. Of course, this is not a roadmap commitment, but you start, I think, adding functionality to the Microsoft 365 environment, which could support such a scenario.
Yes, so if I get the question right, it was about starting from Word Online, for example, opening directly Word Online, creating a content, and instead of saving it into OneDrive, SharePoint, or anything else linked to 365, use Alfresco instead. So as of today, there is no such item on the roadmap, as far as I know, but we will have capability maybe around Teams later to upload directly content in Teams and save it into Alfresco.
And
Okay.
yeah, I think that we already answered with a previous question to the last one. So can you use Teams to expose documents to people out of your organization?
So both of those connectors can be used. For example, in meeting where you have external people, you can, using the Teams integration, share link to your Alfresco instance so that external user can access the document if they have any account declared on it. If you want to work on internal content that should be shared, for example, with partner, the Microsoft 365 integration can help you because based on the settings of your organization, you will be able to share content and invite external people to work on your Word document, PowerPoint presentation, or Excel file. But in the end, it's all up to the settings that you configure in Microsoft 365.
Okay, thank you, Jan. I don't believe there are any more questions. If you could just do a check for me in the background, Daniela, that would be appreciated. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank Jan again for giving us the demonstration of the Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 connectors, and for Ronnie for facilitating the discussion. And I thank everyone for attending today. And there should be a slide on the screen now that has the contact information for us here at Zenit, and also a landing page at Highland where you could go and get some more information about the topics that we discussed today. I know the guys at Highland put up the landing pages so that you can see where they are exactly in terms of their roadmaps and the functionality of the solutions. So please check it out if you're interested, or follow up with us with the information that you're seeing on the screen. I'd like to thank everyone once again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a good day. Bye-bye.